I have 3 days to find $22,000 or I lose everything. The words tore out of Mia Morales before she could stop them, her voice cracking like old glass, the phone pressed so hard against her ear that her hand ached. Rain began to fall across the Seattle parking lot, light at first, then harder, drumming against the asphalt and the roof of her ancient sedan like 1,000 impatient fingers. The time on the bank's digital sign read 11:51 p.m. She stood beside her car in the employee parking lot of Vivaldi's, the upscale Italian restaurant where she had just finished a 12-hour shift, still wearing the black uniform that hung loose on her frame now. Her apron pocket held a debt collector's letter, the paper already damp, the words "final notice" stamped across it in red ink so bright it looked like blood. The storage facility manager on the other end of the line spoke in the practiced tone of someone who had delivered this message 1,000 times. His words were efficient and emotionless. The unit was going up for auction in 72 hours. Everything inside would be liquidated. There was no exception to the policy. There was no mercy in his voice. Mia closed her eyes. The rain fell harder. When she opened them again, she looked down at her hands. 34 crumpled dollar bills lay there, counted and recounted under the flickering parking lot light, wrinkled from being clutched and clutched again. $34. That was everything. That was the sum total of her existence distilled into paper currency that felt like it might disintegrate if she held it any tighter. The storage unit held everything she owned. Photographs from before. A winter coat that still smelled like her mother's perfume. A box of books with her father's handwriting in the margins. And the most precious thing of all, the thing that made her chest tighten just thinking about it, the box of photographs from before Douglas Hale made her into someone who sleeps in her car and washes her face in public restrooms. She didn't remember hanging up the phone. She only knew that she was staring at her reflection in the car window, fractured and distorted by the rain, and the woman looking back at her was someone she no longer recognized. 2 blocks away, across the street from Vivaldi's, a black Mercedes SUV idled with its engine running. The interior was dark leather and soft lighting, the kind of space that costs more than most people's annual salary. Salvatore Caruso sat in the back seat, a man of 47 years with the bearing of someone who had learned early that the world belonged to those willing to take it. His suit was charcoal gray and tailored so precisely that it looked like a second skin, and beneath it his white dress shirt lay open at the neck, revealing the hard landscape of his chest and the faint silver scar that ran from his left eye to his cheekbone like a map of old violence. His dark eyes, storm gray at the edges, had been trained for decades to notice everything. The way a person held their shoulders. The hesitation before a lie. The moment when fear transformed into something harder and more dangerous. He had watched Mia serve his table all evening. She had brought his wine with steady hands despite the tremor he could see in her fingers. She had smiled at his guests, a smile that never quite reached her eyes, and he recognized that particular exhaustion because he had worn it himself once, a lifetime ago. In the driver's seat, Vinny turned slightly, his dark hair slicked back, his expression neutral. Vinny had worked for Salvatore for 15 years. He knew the look in his boss's eyes. It was the look that came before decisions that changed things. "Should we head back to the compound, sir?" Vinny asked. "The rain's getting worse." Salvatore raised one hand, and Vinny understood immediately. Silence fell between them, heavy and complete. The boss continued watching the woman in the parking lot, and in that moment, something shifted in his chest like a door opening onto a room he had locked away for a very long time. He saw her there in the rain, counting dollars like they were pieces of her own survival, and he thought of a boy of 14 years old, standing in a basement in Naples with nothing but the clothes on his back, watching his father bleed out onto concrete, understanding with absolute certainty that the world had no interest in mercy. That boy had become this man. That man had built an empire on the principle that you protected what was yours and you crushed what threatened it. But Salvatore Caruso had also made a silent oath to himself decades ago, in that same basement, that he would never turn away from someone trapped and afraid. Because he knew what it cost to be invisible. He watched her lean against the car door, watched her shoulders curve inward like a question mark, and he made a decision. "Vinny," he said, his voice deep and solid like an oath. "Find out everything about her." "Sir," Vinny replied, though he did not turn around. "We don't even know her name." "We will," Salvatore said. Mia did not see the black SUV. She did not see the man in the back seat watching her with eyes that had seen unspeakable things and survived them. She only knew that the rain was falling harder, that her car's check engine light had been on for 3 weeks, that she had 3 days, and that $34 was not going to change anything. She pulled her uniform across her shoulders like a shield. The diner where she had washed her face that morning, counting those crumpled bills under the fluorescent bathroom light, felt like a lifetime ago. She thought of the storage unit across the city, filled with photographs and books and memories, everything that proved she had existed before this. The parking lot light flickered and dimmed. The rain hammered down. Mia opened the car door. The engine turned over on the 3rd try, and she pulled out into the storm without looking back. In the Mercedes, Salvatore watched her taillights disappear into the darkness and the rain. "Vinny," he said quietly. "I want to know who she is. Where she works. Where she lives. How much she owes. To whom. And why." "Yes, sir," Vinny replied, already reaching for his phone. Salvatore's hand moved to the small gold watch on his wrist, a habit from childhood, a way of marking time. He had spent 47 years building power. He had spent 47 years learning that power meant nothing if there was no one to protect with it. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, something cold and dangerous stirred in his chest. Now, let us go back to the beginning, to 3 weeks earlier, to the summer thunderstorm that brought them together, to the moment when fate made its first move and neither of them knew that everything was about to change. The sky over Seattle turned the color of a bruise. The highway stretched empty beneath a sky the color of a bruise. 9:34 in the evening. Highway 5, 15 miles south of Seattle, and the summer heat hung thick and suffocating despite the black clouds rolling in from the west like something alive and hunting. Mia Morales gripped the steering wheel of her 1998 Honda Civic with both hands, feeling the slight tremor in her fingers that never quite went away anymore. The check engine light glowed steady on the dashboard, that amber eye that had been watching her for 3 weeks, a constant reminder that nothing in her life was stable. Not the car. Not the job. Not the storage unit across the city holding everything she had left. The duct tape holding the passenger mirror together had started peeling at the edges. She could see her reflection in it anyway, fractured, incomplete, like the rest of her life. Her work uniform lay folded on the passenger seat, crisp and black, ready to be transformed into. Ready to become someone else for 8 hours. She took the exit toward the gas station and pulled in slowly, careful with every movement because the car had been making a sound lately, a grinding noise deep in the engine that cost money she did not have. The fluorescent lights of the station blazed against the darkening sky. Inside, the bathroom smelled like bleach and desperation and something else she could not name. The mirror above the sink was grimy, streaked with fingerprints and dust and the accumulated failure of 1,000 people washing their hands in this exact bathroom. Mia stood at the sink and counted the money. $34. Crumpled bills and coins and a few dollar bills so worn the portraits were fading. She spread them across the chipped porcelain like she was reading tea leaves, trying to divine some message in the numbers. $34. She needed $22,000 in 3 days or the storage unit where she kept everything, the photographs, the books, the adoption papers for Emma stamped pending in red letters, the proof that she had existed before Douglas Hale, would be auctioned to the highest bidder. The debt collector's letter was in her backpack. She had read it so many times she could recite it from memory. Final notice. Red stamp. Words like a knife wrapped in ice. She brushed her teeth with the travel toothbrush she kept in her pocket. The water from the tap ran cold. She splashed it on her face, watching her reflection fragment under the harsh lights. 29 years old but looking a decade older. Hollow cheeks. Eyes that had learned not to hope. Hair she could not afford to cut properly, pulled back in a knot at the base of her neck. She looked at herself and thought of Emma's face, that photograph in her backpack, that little girl with Mia's chin and her biological mother's eyes, waiting in the foster system because Mia could not gather together the money for the final court date. She changed in one of the stalls, peeling off her daytime clothes and sliding into the black uniform. The shirt was too big in the shoulders, but she had cinched it with a belt. She was good at making things work that should not work. She was good at survival. It was the only thing she had left. Her backpack contained everything she owned. The photograph of Emma in its plastic frame. The adoption papers, creased from handling. 3 changes of clothes. A laptop that had stopped working 2 months ago. A toothbrush. A bar of soap she had stolen from a hotel bathroom. The debt collector's letter, which she kept because she needed to remember that the problem was real, that she was not imagining the tightness in her chest. She touched Emma's face through the glass, her fingertip tracing the line of the child's smile. "I am so close, baby," she whispered to the photograph, to the empty bathroom, to no one. "Just need to hold on a little longer. Just need to find a way." The bathroom door creaked open. A man in a trucker cap glanced in, saw her, and left quickly. She was used to that. The invisibility of someone with nothing. The way people looked through her like she was not quite solid, not quite real. Outside, the sky had changed. The bruise-colored clouds had turned darker, angrier, and the wind had picked up. She could feel it in the air, electricity, pressure, the sensation of something breaking. She pulled out of the gas station toward the highway, toward the restaurant where she would work a double shift for barely enough in tips to cover gas money, and the sky split open. Rain fell like someone had overturned a river in the clouds. Not a normal summer storm. This was something else. The rain hammered against the windshield in sheets so thick the wipers could not keep up. The highway dissolved into water. Other cars pulled over, turned on their hazard lights, gave up. Mia gripped the steering wheel and kept driving. The check engine light flickered, brightened, and then the engine made a sound like something breaking. A grinding noise, a cough, and then nothing. Just the sound of rain on the roof and the steering wheel becoming suddenly heavy in her hands. "No," she said to the car. "No, please. Not tonight." She coasted onto the shoulder, where the rain seemed to fall even harder, as if the storm knew she was helpless here and was determined to make the point. She tried the ignition. The engine turned over reluctantly, made that grinding sound again, and died. She tried again. Nothing. Again. A clicking sound, weak and tired. She put her head down on the steering wheel and felt her shoulders start to shake. The rain hammered the roof like fists. She had no phone. She had sold it last week for $200 to cover rent on the motel room where she had stayed for 10 nights before she could no longer afford it. She had been sleeping in the car for 5 days now. The backpack with Emma's photograph was her only possession. The storage unit with the rest of her life was like a lighthouse she could see from a distance but could not reach. Lightning cracked the sky so bright it turned everything white for a moment. Thunder followed, close enough to vibrate through the car. She closed her eyes and tried to breathe. The headlights appeared in her rearview mirror like eyes opening in the darkness. Not one car. 3. Black SUVs, massive and gleaming despite the rain, pulling onto the shoulder in perfect synchronization. Military precision. Intentional. Organized. They formed a triangle around her car, blocking both directions, cutting off escape. The rain hammered down between them. Mia's heart stopped. The door of the center SUV opened. A man stepped out into the downpour without hesitation, without an umbrella, without any acknowledgement of the rain at all. His suit was charcoal gray, tailored, the kind of suit that cost more than everything she owned combined. His hair was dark, silvered at the temples, slicked back by the rain. His face was hard in a way that suggested he had learned hardness early and practiced it for decades. He was tall. 6'1", maybe taller. Broad across the shoulders. The kind of man who took up space and expected the world to make room for him. He approached her window with deliberate steps. Mia's hand went to the door lock. He tapped on the glass. 3 distinct knocks. Not aggressive. Just loud enough to hear over the rain. When she did not respond, he made a rolling motion with one hand. Roll down the window. She cracked it 1 inch. The rain blew in, cold and sharp. Car trouble. His voice was rough, deep, like an engine that ran on something heavier than gasoline. There was no accent, but there was something in the cadence that suggested he had been born somewhere else, learned to speak this language the way a soldier learns to fire a weapon, with precision and intention. She nodded but could not speak. He looked past her at the back seat. The pillows. The blankets. The bags that contained her life. His eyes widened slightly, the only sign that he had understood what he was seeing. A woman living in her car. A woman with nowhere else to go. "Where are you headed?" he asked. "To work," she managed. "The restaurant?" "Bella not." "On Pine Street." Recognition flickered across his face. Not surprise. Something else. Something like the moment when a door opens that you did not know was there. "I know it," he said. "We will give you a ride." "I can't." "You can walk in this storm or you can accept help." His voice was not unkind, but it was not a request. "Choose quickly." Behind him, 2 other men stood by the rear SUV. Both wore dark suits. Both had the same posture, the same alert stillness of people who were trained to be dangerous. One was older, maybe in his 50s, with silver hair and a scar that ran from his left eye to his cheekbone. The other was younger, broad-faced, with the kind of expression that suggested he had seen things he could not unsee. She thought of Emma. She thought of the storage unit. She thought of being trapped in this car as the storm destroyed it, watching the rain come through the roof until there was nothing left. She unlocked the door. The older man, the scarred one, opened it from the outside. He helped her out of the car with a gentleness that seemed impossible for hands that large. Up close, she could see the lines in his face, the weight he carried not just in his body but in his shoulders, in the set of his jaw. "What is your name?" he asked. "Mia. Mia Morales." "I am Salvatore Caruso." He did not offer his hand. Instead, he nodded toward the SUV. "Come. Luca will drive you. Vinny will handle your car." Luca was the younger man with the broad face. He opened the rear door of the middle SUV, gestured for her to climb in. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne and something metallic underneath, the smell of power, she would think later, or perhaps the smell of danger. She climbed in, her backpack clutched against her chest like a shield. The ride was silent except for the rain. Salvatore sat in the front passenger seat. He did not turn around, did not look at her, did not speak. But she felt his presence like a weight, like gravity pulling at her. Luca drove with one hand casual on the wheel, his eyes occasionally checking the mirrors, his attention split between the road and something invisible she could not perceive. Mia looked down at her backpack and clutched it tighter. She could see the bruises on her wrists. The ones she covered with long sleeves. The ones that had darkened from purple to yellow-green over the past week. Douglas Hale's fingers had left marks. Douglas Hale, who had seemed so kind 6 months ago, so gentle, who had helped her move into the apartment she thought would be her fresh start, who had changed the moment they were alone behind closed doors. The restaurant appeared through the rain like a promise. Bella not. Beautiful night. The windows glowed warm and gold. Through them she could see tables, people, the normal world still turning while hers had stopped. Luca pulled up to the curb. The rain was slightly lighter here, as if the storm was moving on, losing interest. "Thank you," Mia said. Her voice was barely a whisper. I don't know how to." "You work here?" Salvatore asked. It was the first time he had spoken since she climbed into the vehicle. "Yes." 6 to 2 in the morning. "Double shift." He nodded slowly. He still did not turn around. "Luca will wait," Salvatore said. "After your shift, he will drive you home." Do not argue about this. It is not a request. She climbed out of the SUV and stood in the rain for a moment, watching the 3 black vehicles. Salvatore had still not turned to look at her. She could see his reflection in the window of the restaurant, distorted and strange. An old man made of shadow, watching her. She turned toward the restaurant, untied her apron from her backpack, and walked through the doors into the warm light and the sound of silverware and conversation. She became invisible again. A waitress. Nobody. Just another person serving food to people who barely saw her. In the Mercedes behind her, Salvatore watched her disappear inside. He watched her tie her apron. He watched her transform her face into the professional smile, the empty eyes, the practiced kindness of someone serving the people with power. He reached for his phone and dialed without looking at it. The number was committed to memory. "Vinny," he said when his lieutenant answered. "I want to know who she is. Where she lives. How much she owes. To whom. And why. I want her full history. Everything." "Yes, sir," Vinny replied. "It will take. I do not care how long it takes. I want it tonight." He ended the call and looked at his watch. A small gold watch on his wrist, something his mother had given him before she died in the tenement building that burned down in 1987, before he learned that power was the only thing that protected people from being erased. He had spent 47 years building an empire. He had spent 47 years learning that power meant nothing, nothing, if there was no one to protect with it. He had learned the lesson from experience. His mother had learned it from fire and smoke. For the first time in longer than he could remember, something cold and dangerous stirred in his chest. The restaurant exhaled candlelight across white tablecloths. Soft Italian opera floated through Bella Not like a prayer, and the smell of garlic and basil hung heavy in the warm air. Red wine gleamed in crystal glasses. Silver clinked against porcelain. Everything spoke of money, of belonging, of a world that had never known the inside of a car at midnight. Salvatore Caruso occupied the private booth in the back corner like he owned it. He did own it, technically. He owned the entire restaurant. 2 men sat across from him, Vinny and Luca, lieutenants who had been with him for 15 years. Both wore tailored suits worth more than some people's annual salary. Both moved with the quiet efficiency of men accustomed to violence they rarely needed to use anymore. The owner Marco approached with nervous respect, his hands shaking slightly as he greeted them. "Good evening, Signore Caruso. Your usual table. May I bring you something to drink?" "Chianti," Salvatore said without looking at the menu. "The 1998. He did not raise his voice. He never raised his voice. This was one of the things that frightened people about him. At 8 o'clock exactly, Mia appeared. She moved between tables like she was trying not to take up space, her black waitress uniform pressed but worn, her hair pulled back so tightly it made her face look skeletal. She was thin in a way that suggested not choice but necessity. When she approached Salvatore's booth, she froze for half a second. Their eyes met. She recognized something in him, or perhaps he recognized something in her. The moment passed. "Good evening," she said, her voice carefully neutral, the voice of someone who had learned to be invisible while standing in plain sight. "Can I start you with drinks?" Her hands trembled as she wrote their order. Salvatore noticed. He noticed everything. The way her sleeves were pulled down despite the warm restaurant. The way she flinched slightly when a customer spoke loudly. The careful smile that never reached her eyes. When she returned with the wine, he spoke quietly so only she could hear. "Your car. It is fixed. No charge." Mia's face went white. She set the bottle down so hard the glasses rattled against each other. "I can't accept that. I don't even know you. Why would you?" "It is done," he said. She stared at him for 3 seconds. Then she turned and walked toward the kitchen, her steps quickening, her shoulders rigid. Vinny leaned in, his voice low. "Boss, this is not like you." Salvatore did not respond. He simply watched her disappear through the kitchen doors. Throughout the meal, he observed her. Saw her slip into the bathroom during her break and return with fresh concealer carefully applied to her wrists, covering something beneath. Saw her eat leftover bread from a returned basket, eating it quickly, secretively, like she was stealing. Saw the manager hand her cash tips at the end of each shift and watched her count them immediately, her lips moving with desperate mathematics. At 10:06 p.m., the restaurant doors swung open. Douglas Hale entered like he owned the place. He was tall, athletic, wearing a Seattle Police Department softball team jacket over a white shirt. Off-duty. Connected. The kind of man accustomed to getting what he wanted because there was always another cop in the room who would help him. Mia was clearing table 7 when she saw him. Her entire body went rigid. A plate slipped from her hand and shattered against the floor, a sound like a gunshot in the candlelight. Every head turned. Douglas walked straight to her. He grabbed her arm. "We need to talk. Now." "I'm working," Mia whispered, trying to pull away. "You think you can just disappear? You think I won't find you?" His voice rose, carrying across the restaurant. Diners stared openly now. Marco, the manager, approached nervously, but Douglas flashed a buddy smile at him. "Just talking to my girl," he said. "No problem here." He leaned close to Mia's ear, but loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. 3 days, Mia. Then I take everything in that storage unit and you've got nothing. See you soon." He released her arm and walked back out into the Seattle night. Mia stood frozen, surrounded by broken porcelain and staring faces. She knelt down and began picking up the pieces with shaking hands. Her eyes were dry, but her lips were moving soundlessly, counting something. Counting losses. Counting time. From the back booth, Salvatore watched this unfold without moving. His jaw clenched so tightly that a vein throbs in his temple. Luca started to rise, his hand moving toward his jacket, but Salvatore stopped him with a single look. "Not yet," he whispered. "But soon." He reached for his phone. The next morning, at 2:22 p.m., Mia sat in her car in a Walmart parking lot. The vehicle was a 2003 Honda Civic, its interior smelling like stale air and desperation. On her lap sat $34 in crumpled bills and 43 cents in coins. This was everything she had left in the world. On the dashboard sat a white envelope. Final notice was stamped across it in red ink. Below that, a number that had haunted her every waking moment, $22,000 due within 72 hours or the contents of storage unit 447 would be auctioned and discarded. She opened the folder beside her. Inside was Emma's file. Emma Ray Michaels, age 7. The photograph showed a girl with dark eyes and cautious smile, a child who had been in 3 foster homes and failed to attach to any of them. Until she met Mia at a community volunteer program. Now the social worker's notes read, "Emma has specifically requested placement with Miss Morales. The bond is extraordinary. She calls Miss Morales Mama and experiences severe anxiety when separated." Mia touched the photograph. She whispered to it like her daughter could hear her through the paper and distance. "I'm going to lose you." Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But she did. "Miss Morales? This is Evelyn Blackwell. We met at the Children's Hope Charity Gala last month. You served our table." Mia remembered. A woman in her 60s, draped in diamonds, with kind eyes and an elegant way of speaking. She had asked genuine questions about Mia's life, her dreams, her struggle to adopt Emma. "Yes," Mia said carefully. "I remember. I've been thinking about your situation. The adoption. The financial burden you're carrying." Evelyn's voice was warm, almost maternal. "I'd like to help. Can we meet for coffee? Say, for a clock at Café Monarch." Hope exploded in Mia's chest like a flare going off underwater. Her voice cracked. "Yes. Thank you. Yes." She hung up and put her head down on the steering wheel. For the first time in weeks, she cried. Real tears. The kind that came from a place so deep it felt like drowning from the inside. Across the city, in an office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle, Salvatore Caruso stood very still. Luca had spread documents across his desk. Photographs, bank statements, adoption files, police records. A life laid bare in paper and numbers. Her name is Mia Morales, age 28, Luca said, his voice careful and neutral. Former nursing student. Dropped out 2 years ago due to lack of funds. Her ex-boyfriend is Douglas Hale, Seattle Police Department, detective level. He's filed 6 restraining order requests against her. All denied because his fellow officers buried them in the system. Salvatore read the adoption paperwork. Emma's face stared up at him from the photograph. She's trying to adopt this child, Salvatore said. It was not a question. Yes, sir. She needs $22,000 in legal fees and storage unit costs combined within 3 days, or she loses the foster care application and everything she owns. The documents indicate she has, Luca checked the papers, $34 to her name. Salvatore's hands clenched into fists. He was 8 years old again, standing in a basement, his arm broken in 2 places, understanding for the first time that the world does not protect the helpless. It devours them. Where is she now? He asked. Heading to Cafe Monarch. She has a meeting with Evelyn Blackwell. Salvatore's face changed. Something ancient and dangerous flickered behind his eyes. Evelyn Blackwell. Unknown why, sir. The meeting was just scheduled. Cancel my afternoon, Salvatore said. Call Vinny. Tell him to bring the car around. He did not know, as he said this, that he was beginning something that could not be undone. He did not know that in 5 days' time, 2 people would understand what it meant to be erased, to have their entire lives dismantled methodically, mathematically, without mercy. He only knew that he was done watching good people suffer alone. Cafe Monarch sat in the heart of downtown Seattle, all white umbrellas and expensive outdoor seating. Mia arrived early, at 3:54 p.m. She wore her only clean shirt, her hair brushed, her fingernails bitten down to the quick. Evelyn Blackwell was already seated at a corner table. She was beautiful in the way wealthy women are beautiful, not from bone structure or youth, but from access to the best dermatologists, colorists, tailors, and trainers money could purchase. She wore a Chanel suit that cost more than Mia made in a year. When she smiled, it was the smile of someone who had never been told no. Mia, darling, sit, Evelyn said. Mia Saturday. When the server approached, she ordered water. Only water. Evelyn ordered a salad that cost $32. So I've been thinking about your adoption case, Evelyn began, her voice dripping with false concern. $22,000, correct? Plus the storage unit fees. Yes, Mia said quietly. But if you could help, even a little, I might be able to. I did some research, Evelyn interrupted. Emma, age 7. Behavioral issues from past trauma. Reactive attachment disorder, they're calling it. Expensive child. Very expensive child. Are you really equipped to care for her, Mia? I mean, you're living in your car, aren't you? Mia's breath caught. How did you? I make it my business to know these things, Evelyn said. She leaned forward, and her eyes were no longer kind. They were the eyes of someone examining an insect pinned to a board. Here's what I'll do. I'll give you the $22,000. All of it. But in exchange, you're going to sign a little contract stating that you're unfit for parenthood, that you seduced my husband, yes, I know you didn't, but that's irrelevant, and that you attempted to blackmail me for money. I need that documentation for my divorce proceedings. It will be very useful. Mia stood so fast her chair fell backward. You're insane. I'm practical. Sit down. You're making a scene. Mia stumbled out of the cafe. Behind her, Evelyn called out sweetly. You have 3 days, Mia. Think about it. Call me when you're ready to be reasonable. She returned to her salad like nothing had happened. Across the street, in a black SUV with tinted windows, Salvatore Caruso watched the whole exchange unfold. He watched Mia's face crumble. He watched her walk away with her shoulders shaking. He watched Evelyn smile. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Vinny in the passenger seat had worked for Salvatore for 15 years and had never seen this expression on his boss's face. Boss? Vinny said carefully. Find out everything about Evelyn Blackwell. Every bank account. Every secret. Every lie she's ever told. And Douglas Hale, I want his precinct, his partners, his gambling debts, his affairs. I want to know what he ate for breakfast 10 years ago. Everything. You're moving on both of them? Vinny asked. I am going to erase them, Salvatore said quietly. That night, at 11:08 p.m., Mia's shift ended. She moved through the restaurant like a phantom, mechanical, hollow-eyed. She dropped a tray of water glasses. She spilled wine on a customer. Marco, the manager, pulled her aside and told her to go home, that she was destroying the restaurant's atmosphere. She did not have a home. She nodded and changed out of her uniform anyway. The parking lot was empty except for one black SUV. Salvatore leaned against it, waiting. Mia stopped 10 feet away. What do you want? She asked. To talk, he said. She looked like she might run. Instead, she sat down on the curb, put her head in her hands, and began to cry. Not the controlled, quiet crying from this morning. Real crying. Ragged, broken, the sound of someone who has finally run out of strength. Salvatore sat beside her. Not touching. Just present. Rain began to fall. Light at first, then harder, pattering against the asphalt like 1,000 small fists. Why do you keep helping me? Mia finally whispered. You don't know me. I'm nobody. You are not nobody, he said. I sleep in my car. I wash my face in gas station bathrooms. I have $34 and 3 days to come up with $22,000 or I lose the only thing I've ever wanted. I am the definition of nobody. Salvatore was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different. Younger somehow, despite his age. Raw. When I was 8 years old, I stole a loaf of bread because my mother had not eaten in 3 days. My father found out. He broke my arm in 2 places and locked me in a basement for a week. I learned something that week that I have never forgotten. The world is divided into 2 kinds of people. Those who destroy. And those who survive being destroyed. You are a survivor. I recognize it. Mia looked at him for the first time, really looked. Saw the scars on his knuckles. Saw the old pain in his eyes. Saw a man who understood exactly what it meant to have nothing and to keep living anyway. I have 2 people trying to destroy me, she whispered. Douglas Hale. And Evelyn Blackwell. Salvatore stood. He offered his hand. Go home. Sleep. Tomorrow, your problems will be smaller. She did not take his hand. She did not need to. Something in the way he said those words made her believe him. The storm will pass. The morning air cuts through the parking lot like a blade. 6 o'clock. The sky over Seattle is the color of wet concrete. Mia wakes to pounding on her car window, violent, deliberate, the sound of someone who knows the glass will hold but wants her to feel the force anyway. Douglas Hale stands outside her sedan, his uniform crisp and blue, his badge catching the gray light. Behind him, 2 more officers, younger, grinning like this is entertainment. Mia's hands find the door lock. Her fingers are shaking so badly she has to press twice. Open up, Mia, Douglas calls, his voice smooth as oil. We got an anonymous tip about drug possession in your vehicle. We need to search it. She does not move. She does not speak. Her throat has closed into a fist. Douglas leans down, his face pressed against the window. Open the door or I open it for you. Your choice. One of the officers pulls out his phone. He is already filming. The other one laughs, a sound like broken glass. They believe they own this moment. They believe she is trapped, which she is. If she drives away, they will chase her. If she screams, no one will come. He is a cop. His friends are cops. And she is nobody, just a woman in a 10-year-old sedan with $34 in her purse and nowhere to run. Her hand moves toward the door handle. Then a voice cuts through the parking lot, solid and cold as steel. I would not do that if I were you. Salvatore Caruso walks toward them. 6'2" of tailored intention, his charcoal suit fitting like it was stitched onto his body, his white shirt open at the collar revealing the smooth muscle of his chest. His dark eyes are fixed on Douglas with the intensity of a predator who has already decided. Behind him, Vinny and Luca flank him in perfect synchronization, their movements identical, their suits identical, their expressions erased. Behind them, 9 more men in black. 12 total. Moving like ghosts, like the asphalt beneath their feet belongs to them more than it belongs to the earth. They approach in absolute silence except for the sound of their footsteps, measured, unhurried, each step a promise. Douglas laughs. The laugh cracks in the middle. This is police business, pal. You need to walk away. Salvatore stops 5 feet from him. This is harassment of a private citizen. And it ends now. I'm a cop, Douglas says, and his hand moves to his belt. You threaten me, you go to jail. Salvatore smiles. It is the smile of a man who has already won something Douglas does not even know was at stake. You are a cop who has $12,000 in gambling debts to the West Side crew. You are a cop who falsified 3 domestic violence reports to cover for your own violence. You are a cop whose partner is currently under investigation by Internal Affairs for evidence tampering. Make one more move toward that woman and you will discover that some things are far worse than jail. Douglas's face goes the color of old paper. His mouth opens. No words come out. 3 black vans pull into the parking lot. Not Salvatore's vehicles. Different family. The Marchesi clan. 8 men emerge from the first van. Their leader, Antonio Marchesi, a man in his 60s with silver hair and a scar running from his left eye to his jaw, nods once to Salvatore. This the one. Antonio's voice is rough, scarred from a throat wound decades ago. Douglas Hale, Salvatore says. He is yours. Douglas turns to run. Vinny and Luca are faster. They do not grab him violently. They simply place their hands on his arms and hold. Douglas thrashes like a caged animal, his legs kicking at the asphalt, his voice rising to a scream that echoes off the concrete buildings surrounding them. 2 Marchesi soldiers step forward. They work with the efficiency of men who have done this 100 times. A gag goes into Douglas's mouth, muffling his screams into wet, desperate sounds. They lift him off the ground and carry him toward the open van door. His uniform is already soaked with sweat. His eyes are bulging, the whites showing completely, the eyes of an animal watching its own death approach in slow motion. Antonio says, and his voice is almost gentle as he approaches Mia's window. You will never see this man again. He will disappear to a place where cop badges mean nothing and debts get paid slowly. Very slowly. He will have many years to think about what he has done. And he will have no one to help him. The van doors slam shut. Douglas's screams fade to nothing as the vehicles drive away, turning a corner and vanishing into the Seattle morning like water down a drain. The parking lot is silent. Salvatore approaches Mia's window. He does not demand entry. He simply stands there, his hands empty, his expression unreadable. One problem solved. Now the second. At that same hour, across the city in the Queen Anne neighborhood, Evelyn Blackwell sits at the head of a long table on her mansion's terrace. 12 wealthy women surround her, their mimosas catching the morning light like liquid gold, their jewelry glinting with the casual confidence of inherited money. Evelyn wears white, a linen dress worth more than Mia Morales makes in a month, her grey hair swept back from her face, her smile sharp as a knife. "So I offered this pathetic little waitress money," Evelyn is saying, her voice carrying across the terrace, "and she actually thought I was being kind. Can you imagine? Living in her car and she laughs, a sound like breaking crystal. She actually thought someone like me would care about someone like her." Her phone buzzes. Then again. And again. She silences it, annoyed. A minute later it rings. Her lawyer. She answers without leaving the table, wanting her friends to see her casual dismissal of business. "What?" Her face changes. The smile dies. The color drains out of her skin like someone has opened a valve. "What do you mean they froze everything?" Her lawyer's voice crackles through the phone, panicked and urgent. "Evelyn, someone sent federal prosecutors every single document. Every shell company, every hidden account, the money laundering in your husband's construction company, all of it. They are issuing warrants right now. You need to call a criminal attorney immediately." "This is a mistake," Evelyn whispers. "There must be. They are already on their way to your house. Evelyn, they are coming for you." The line goes dead. Through the mansion's glass doors, black sedans pull up the driveway. FBI raid written in white letters across the windshields. Men and women in dark jackets emerge, moving with the coordinated precision of people trained in extraction. The lead agent, a woman in her 50s with iron-gray eyes, approaches the terrace. Evelyn stands. Her friends freeze mid-sip, their mimosas paused at their lips. "Evelyn Blackwell," the agent says, pulling handcuffs from her belt, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit tax fraud, money laundering, and evidence tampering." "This is a mistake," Evelyn says, but her voice is shattered now, fractured like old glass. "I'm the victim here. My husband, he. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The handcuffs click onto Evelyn's wrists in front of 12 witnesses. 12 women pulling out their phones, already recording, already composing the social media posts that will destroy her completely. Within the hour, the footage will spread like wildfire. By evening, every news outlet in the city will be running her mugshot. By tomorrow morning, she will be the most humiliated woman in Seattle. As the agents walk her through the mansion, toward the waiting vehicles, Evelyn sees him through the front gate. Salvatore Caruso stands across the street, hands in his pockets, watching. Their eyes meet for one moment. He nods once, a gesture so small most people would miss it. Justice delivered. 2 blocks away, in the parking lot of the storage facility, Mia sits in her car staring at her phone. News alerts flood the screen. Local cop missing. FBI raids Queen and estate. Seattle socialite arrested in massive fraud scheme. A text arrived from an unknown number. Your storage unit bill has been paid in full. Adoption fees cleared. Emma comes home Friday. Mia reads it 5 times. 10 times. The words do not change. They remain true. Real. She had written a note last night. Before Salvatore sat beside her on that curb, before the rain began, she had opened her glove compartment and pulled out a pen. She had written to Emma's social worker explaining why she could not go through with the adoption. "I'm not strong enough. I'm sorry." The words filled an entire page. That note is still in her glove compartment. She pulls it out now. Reads her own handwriting, the desperate curve of the letters, the way the pen pressed so hard it tore the paper in places. Then she rips the paper into pieces. Not angry. Not violent. Just releasing. The pieces fall like snow into the parking lot as rain begins again, light and warm, summer rain that smells like the earth washing itself clean. Mia tilts her face to the sky and laughs, full-body laughs that shake her entire frame, laughs that come from somewhere deep inside her that she thought had died in a car in the dark. She is laughing and crying at the same moment, tears running down her face, mixing with the rain, the two becoming indistinguishable. The storm will pass and you are far stronger than you think. 1 year had passed. 12 months of mornings where Mia Morales woke without the weight of crushing debt pressing down on her chest. 12 months of breathing. The penthouse apartment sat 42 stories above Seattle, windows stretching floor to ceiling, the city sprawled below like a map of second chances. She stood on the balcony at 9:15 p.m., professional clothes still clinging to her frame, navy blazer, cream blouse, the uniform of a registered nurse at Children's Hospital. Her degree hung on the wall inside, framed in simple wood, the most expensive thing she owned besides the apartment itself. Not owned. Salvatore had made the down payment, but she paid the mortgage now. Her own money. Her own life built on solid ground instead of the crumbling foundation of desperation. The wind carried the scent of rain coming, that particular Seattle perfume of cedar and asphalt and the promise of storms. Mia held a wine glass filled with something imported, something that cost more than 3 days of her old wages, and she felt no guilt. She had learned to accept good things. That was its own form of survival. Behind her, a door slid open. Small footsteps. Emma, 8 years old now, with dark eyes inherited from a mother Mia would never meet, and a smile that could break through concrete. Her backpack lay by the kitchen counter, homework finished in careful letters, a drawing on the refrigerator held by magnets, a girl and a lady and a tall man with a scar, all holding hands under a rainbow. Mom, I finished my homework. Can we watch a movie? Mom. Even after a year, the word still stopped Mia's heart. She turned from the railing, set down her wine glass. Emma stood in the doorway wearing pajamas with little stars on them, hair braided from that morning, one braid already coming loose. Give me 5 minutes, baby. I'm finishing something. Emma nodded, serious and patient in the way children become when they have learned not to push. She disappeared back inside. Through the glass door, Mia could see her settling onto the couch, pulling a blanket up to her chin, already half asleep. Mia turned back to the city. Night had fallen completely now, and the lights below looked like stars fallen to earth, scattered and glittering. Somewhere in this city, people were suffering. Women in cars, counting money that wasn't enough. Children going hungry in neighborhoods where rent devoured paychecks. The weight of the world had not lifted. But Mia stood on solid ground now. She had learned the difference between drowning and swimming. She had not seen Salvatore Caruso in exactly 365 days. 3 weeks after that night in the parking lot, after the note was torn and scattered, after the piece of paper that said she was not strong enough had been released to the wind, she had gone back to Bella Not. The restaurant was the same. Red leather booths. Candles in glass holders. The smell of garlic and basil and old money hanging in the air. His regular table in the corner sat empty. The manager, a thin man with dyed black hair, had smiled apologetically. Mr. Caruso won't be dining with us for a while. Private matters. She had tried to find him. Went to the address Luca had given her, a warehouse downtown converted into something that looked like legitimate business. The door was locked. The windows were dark. She had written him a letter. 3 pages in her best handwriting, explaining that he had saved 2 lives that night, not 1. That Emma had a mother now because of him. That she was going back to school, finishing her nursing degree, determined to help people the way he had helped her. She had poured her gratitude onto paper like blood from an open wound, raw and honest. Luca had taken the letter, nodded once, and never reported back. Months had turned into seasons. She had stopped looking for him. Built the life he had paid for. Registered for classes. Passed the licensing exam. Got hired at Seattle Children's Hospital in the pediatric ward where she spent her days holding sick children and teaching their parents that sometimes you survive by showing up every single day, by doing the small things, by not giving up even when giving up is easier. The doorbell chimed. Not a normal sound. A precise, Careful sound of someone requesting entry, not demanding it. Through the intercom, Luca's voice, "Mrs. Morales? Vinny asked me to bring something for you. May I come up?" She buzzed him in without thinking. Luca had become something like a friend this past year, checking in monthly, bringing groceries, fixing the leaky kitchen faucet she had complained about once. The loyalty of the underworld applied to her now. She was under the protection of Salvatore Caruso's name, and that name was worth more than any lock. She opened the door. Luca stood in the hallway, but behind him stood another figure. Taller. Broader. Shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of empires. A dark suit that cost more than her old car. Scars on his knuckles like a map of wars she would never understand. Hair with silver threading at the temples, eyes that seemed to see through walls. Salvatore Caruso. The wine glass slipped from her fingers. It fell in slow motion, beautiful and terrible, and shattered against the tile floor without a sound that mattered. All sound had stopped. All breath. All sense of time passing. "I apologize for the intrusion," he said, voice exactly as she remembered, deep and solid like an oath, like something carved in stone that would not break. "Luca has a key. I asked him to let me in. I understand if you want me to leave immediately." Mia could not move. She could not speak. She could only stare at this man who had appeared like smoke in her life and then vanished, leaving only footprints and a paid storage bill and words that she had written on her bathroom mirror with permanent marker, "The storm will pass and you are far stronger than you think." "You've been gone for a year," she said finally. The words felt strange in her mouth, like speaking in a language she had learned but never used. "I needed to make sure you could stand on your own. That you did not rebuild your life in my shadow." Salvatore stepped inside, and Luca withdrew quietly, closing the door. "You needed to know you were strong before I could tell you why." "Why what?" "Why I did it. Why I have carried what I carry." He moved toward the balcony, keeping distance between them. Respectful. Careful not to take up more space than she was willing to give him. "Mia, I need to tell you a truth that I have held for exactly 365 days." She followed him outside. The rain had begun now, soft and warm, summer rain that smelled like the earth preparing to drink. It fell on their faces, and neither moved away from it. "That night I found you broken down on the highway," he said, rainwater running down his scarred face. "It was not random. I had seen you at the restaurant weeks before. Watched you move between tables. Watched you make yourself small enough to disappear. I recognized that instinct because I wore it for 20 years, in poverty so complete that I learned to breathe differently to take up less air. You followed me. For 3 weeks. I know what that sounds like. But when I saw you broken down in that storm, it was like watching my 8-year-old self trapped in my father's basement, locked in darkness until I had clawed my way out. I followed you because I swore to myself that I would never look away again from someone suffering and afraid." Mia's hands moved without permission from her brain. They found his scarred hands, held them like they might disappear if she did not grip hard enough. "You saved my daughter's life," she said. "You saved mine. You do not owe me anything." "That was never the reason." "Then why?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why would the most dangerous man in this city care what happened to me?" Salvatore looked at her like she was the only person who had ever mattered, like the entire weight of his existence had been waiting for this moment on this balcony above a sleeping city. "Because somewhere in the process of rebuilding you," he said, "I forgot that I was also broken. You reminded me what strength looks like. You reminded me that there is something beyond the empire, beyond the money and the power and the men who fear me. You reminded me what it feels like to be human." From inside, Emma's voice, thin and sleepy, "Mom, who's there?" Mia smiled through tears that mixed with rain. "Someone I want you to meet, baby." She led him inside. Emma sat on the couch, half asleep under her blanket, and when she saw this tall, scarred man, she was not afraid. Children know things adults forget. They can sense when someone's violence is not pointed at them. "Are you the person who helped my mom?" Emma asked. Salvatore knelt to her eye level, and his voice became something Mia had never heard before, the gentle, tender. Like a man who had learned love from watching her rebuild it. I am. And you must be Emma. I am. Mom talks about you sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep. She says you taught her that storms pass and we're stronger than we think. Emma yawned. That's good. I like that. Salvatore looked at Mia, and in his eyes was the recognition of exactly what had happened. This 8-year-old child had just recited the words he had spoken in the darkness of a parking lot, words that had traveled through time and become foundation stones in 2 lives rebuilt from rubble. 2 hours later, after Emma had fallen asleep against his shoulder while they watched a movie, after he had carried her carefully to bed and returned to the balcony, they stood in the quiet of 11:19 p.m. while the city dreamed below them. They are imprisoned, Salvatore said without being asked. Douglas Hale is spending his remaining years understanding what powerlessness feels like. The federal facility where he now lives has no corruption, no protection, no second chances. Evelyn Blackwell received a 40-year sentence. Her assets were seized. Her country club friends testified against her to save themselves. She has nothing. Her name is forgotten. Mia felt no satisfaction. No joy. She felt empty of the need for revenge, which was perhaps the greatest victory of all. Good, she said simply. I sleep fine. Salvatore turned to her, surprised by her certainty. You are stronger than I thought. You taught me that. She took his hand. For 1 year, you kept your distance. But I need you close now. Not as a savior. As someone who understands. Someone who chose to rewrite both our stories when you could have looked away. He pulled her close, and his voice broke slightly. I am not a good man, Mia. I have done things. You are the best man I know. You saw someone suffering and chose to help. That is the definition of good. She kissed him softly, and he responded like a man tasting something he had thought was forever out of reach. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. The storm will pass and you are far stronger than you think, he whispered. You told me that a year ago. In the parking lot. I wrote it on my bathroom mirror. Every morning I see those words. And you believed them. I lived them, she said. The rain continued, warm and gentle, washing the city clean. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel, like and share this video with the people you love. Every comment you leave is a precious source of motivation. We wish all of you good health, a joyful life, and days filled with peace.